Hi everybody. Welcome to Amy's top three tips from Clear Equals Kind Essentials of Classroom Relationships. Now, this is just the top three of a longer series of Clear as Kind that I've been teaching for a little bit now that has a whole arc of content. So if you want the full full meal deal, just reach out and we could talk about how to make that happen for you. But for today, we're going to spend just a few moments of time to re inspire and get some tips and ideas to put into action right away. So let's get started. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Amy Williams with Amy Williams Academy, and I'm a coach and consultant for educators and families around the world. And my goal in the work that I do is to help the important adults in the lives of children feel confident and calm and certain in the way that they show up for the children that they love, trying to be the best person possible. So today we're going to be talking about my top three from the series Clear is Kind, Essentials of Classroom Relationships. So here's number one. So this is where I talk about my professional crush, Ross Green, and his work and his thoughts about young children and how we as the adults could show up for them. So Ross Green has a quote that really resonates with me and probably with you too. And he says, "Children do well if they can." Right. So that challenges us to look at the individual child and see what can we do, what is the unmet need, and what can we do to support a skill that may be lagging in the way that they get those needs met. Right. So, excuse me. So first, we'll take a little trip back to our Psych 101 class and talk a little bit about Maslow and his work with the hierarchy of needs. And there's a little history lesson that'll go along with this as well. But to remind us all, Maslow and his team did lots of work, lots of observation in communities all over the place, and found that it is true. As humans, we have basic needs that we share across cultures, right? So we have physiological needs. Are we fed? Do we have water? Do we have warmth? Do we have rest? Right, a basic human need. Goes on to say, what about safety? We have a need as humans. We have a need to be safe emotionally and intellectually. Right. Next is the need for love and belonging. Do I have friends? Do I have a sense of connection? Do I belong in the place where I am? And then there's the need for esteem and respect, status, recognition. Do I have skills to offer the community? And can I contribute in a way that is recognized and seen and needed by the people around me? And Maslow goes on to say, once we have all of those needs met, we can be the full expression of ourselves. We can achieve our full potential. And he calls that self actualization. Now, that's one way to look at it. And when we're in the classroom, when we see behaviors that go sideways, we can come back to this and think, okay, are the child's needs getting met, and go through, okay, physiological needs, check. Safety, check. Love and belonging, that might need some support, right? Or a sense of contributing to the community, right? So when the behaviors happen, the behaviors that send us up the wall, we can get curious about what need is not being met and what skill does this child need to get this need met for themselves or with some support from us, right? So that hierarchy, we often see it as a triangle, is one way to look at it. Now, what's missing sometimes is the historical bit to this story about the time that he spent with the Blackfoot Nation, the indigenous community, Blackfoot Nation. And they saw it in a similar and a little bit of a different way, right? So when he was there, and I'll paraphrase the big story to a smaller story, the community said, well, yeah, of course, those things, we know that. And music and art is another basic human need, and it doesn't stop there. So, yes, we have physiological needs, needs for safety, love and belonging, esteem and respect, aesthetics, music and art. And when we have those needs met, we can be the full expression of ourselves, right? Now, here's where it doesn't end. So if I could be the full expression of myself, and you can, and you can, and you can, we as a community can rise and be the best version possible as a community, as a group living and working together, right? Once our community is actualized, being the best community possible that we could be in service to a living world and in turn support a thriving ecosystem and nature, which in turn supports our physiological needs. So they see it more as a circle instead of a triangle, right? So it doesn't end with the individual. So that speaks to me as an educator in a classroom. We're building community, right? We're supporting individuals, we're teaching individuals, and we're supporting and teaching the community to work together, to love each other, to be respectful, to be kind, to have fun and have joy. And when we see the behaviors that go sideways, we can go back to this list of human needs and get curious, right? So that's my number one tip, right? So number two tip is connection at neutral times. Now, if you've taken a class from me, you've probably heard this because I try to send it out and talk about it to everybody I can. And this concept is inspired by lots of people, but especially the work of Joanne Nordling and her book Caring Discipline. So what is this? Connection at neutral times. Now, this is something that you probably already do, right? The connection at neutral times looks like this. It's often nonverbal connection with the child when they are in a neutral space. So they're not doing behaviors that bring joy or that we say hooray about, and they're not showing us behavior that is bothersome or unwelcome, right? So those are two buckets of behaviors, right? Well, there's another big bucket of behaviors that we consider neutral behaviors, right? They're not doing anything to bring joy. They're not doing anything to bring despair, but they're just existing, right? They might be putting a book away and deciding what to do next, or they might be entering the class for the first time, or they enter into our periphery. We can make eye contact or have some sort of connection where we acknowledge that we see them and that we're glad about that, right? Let's see. That can look like a wink or a wave, or here's the universal one, a smile, right? So this makes me think of a quote by Toni Morrison, where Toni Morrison says, when a child walks in the room, your child or anybody else's child, do your eyes light up? That's what they're looking for. Now, this can be said with your relationships with your colleagues and other adults as well. Do you put your phone down? Do you pause what you're doing and acknowledge and look and smile, right? Now, I wouldn't recommend winking at everybody because some people might think that's weird. Some children may not like it too. So you have to find your way that works for you and in your relationship with the children that you're working with, right? Is it a smile? Is it a wave? Is it a shoulder shimmy? Is it something like that? Something that's true, brief, and often nonverbal, right? When we see behaviors that go sideways and all of those unwelcome behaviors, we could think, what preventative work can I do? How can I support the child in a different way? Can I acknowledge that I see them? They don't have to do anything for me to give them positive regard and to smile and be glad about it, right? Now, the truth is, sometimes we might, honestly, because we're human, we might have to dig deep for that, right? We may be already annoyed by what's been happening all morning in the classroom. Get this, when we increase the frequency of connection at neutral times, most often we will see a decrease in those unwelcome behaviors, right? So, tip number two is to smile more, to make those brief, often nonverbal connections with children who are struggling the most, who are showing us behaviors that are bothersome in some way. Do some preventative grounding work to build your trusting relationship with that child through a smile. All right. The smile is universal, right? So find your way that you connect with children and just turn up the volume, turn up the frequency on that. Right. So that is, that's tip number two. Right. Oh, I do want to say one more thing about that. When we connect with children at neutral times, it lets the child know, it sends a message that they don't have to do anything to be loved by us. It's unconditional. They just exist, and we are happy about that. We're glad about that. We love that they're with us, right? Okay, that's two. Three, I told you this was going to be a speedy one. So here we're already on number three. So number three has to do with the way that we communicate with children and with others, with families and with our colleagues. And this is a breakdown on communication. Like, what are the ingredients of communication? So there are words, the actual words that we say, the tone that we use, and the way that we show up with our body, right? So we might say, um, it's time to pack away lunch. Those are the words, right? We can add tone. It's time to pack away lunch, or it's time to pack away lunch, or it's time to pack away lunch, right? The tone makes the message a little different every time, right? Now, get this. Then we've got the body, which carries a huge chunk of the communication. So, breaking it down, the words carry 7% of the message. That's it, right? Our tone carries 38% of the message, a much bigger chunk. And then we've got our body, which carries 55% of the message, right? So we could use our body, and what are we doing with our hands? What are we doing with our facial expression? How are we leaning in or leaning back or looking away, right? All of these words, tone, and body come together in our communication with children. How can we be clear and kind with children is to make sure our words and our tone and our body are in alignment. So our words are, it's time to pack away lunch. Our tone is with that as well. It's time to pack away lunch. And then our body comes along with it in agreement with our words and our tone. It's time to pack away lunch, right? Oh, you couldn't see my hands, right? So there's a gesture that could go with that. Now, get this. This breakdown, 7% words, 38% tone, and 55% body, is mostly for typically developing children. Now, most of us have children in our classroom and adults that we work with who are neurodivergent. So it's important to remember that the words may carry more impact, more of the meaning, right? If we say we're fine or that's okay, oftentimes neurodivergent people will believe the words because we are learning, what does it mean? What does that tone mean? What does that nuance mean? What does that facial expression mean? That's still in being learned through experience after experience. That reminds me how important it is for our tone and our words and our body to be in alignment. So if we're frustrated and we say, I'm feeling really frustrated, then does our tone match that? And does our body match that? Right? That is the most clear way you could show up for children, is to make sure your words and your tone and your body are in alignment. That can be tricky, especially in our adult relationships when we may have expectations that everything is fine when sometimes things are not fine, right? How can we share and be clear and be kind and also respectful when things aren't fine or when we're not okay, right? Can we be honest and true to ourselves in a way that communicates respectfully what is true, right? When our words, tone, and body match, right? Okay, so that's number three of the big three. I do have a little bonus for you. So I don't call it exactly four, but it's number four, right? So this is about when behaviors go sideways in your classroom, more unwelcome behaviors, bothersome behaviors that are creeping up. You're seeing more of those things. There's something that you can remember to get curious about, right? So when things are really going bananas in your classroom, you could think, okay, child, environment, myself, the teacher, the important adult, right? And when you could think, Is there something that I could do to support the child? Is there a lagging skill, hello, Ross Green, that I could teach into or that I could role model? That's one way. What about the environment? Observing your environment. Is there something I could do to shift the environment? Is the child sensory sensitive to light and sound? And is it really noisy and bright in your classroom? Can you turn down the lights? Can you turn down the music? Can you everybody take a deep breath at the same time, right? Can I move that shelf just about 2 feet this way to kind of cut into the racetrack that it's, inviting the children? All right. And there's so many other ways that you can take a look at your environment and make adjustments to support the needs of the child, right? So we're observing, what is the child doing? What is the need they're trying to get met? What is the skill that they're still working on? And can I adjust the environment to make the experience for the child more successful, right? Okay, so we've got the child and the skills that they're working on, the environment, what adjustments can you make, keeping in mind all the sensory experiences that the child is experiencing. And that's another long conversation, but we're just doing the top few this morning. Okay, and then the third one is teacher, important adult, us, right? What can, one, are my needs met? Do I have some hidden unmet needs that I need to take care of? Have I not had any water in 14 hours? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Do I need to take some deep breaths, right? Are there some skills and some information that I need to better serve this child, right? How am I preparing myself to show up for this child and in my classroom, right? Can I pause, take a deep breath? Can I roll my shoulders back and down, kind of tucking our wings? Can I pull my ears back to relax my face so that this becomes this? Remember how much the body carries our message? This carries a message. So shoulders back and down, ears pulled back. We're in a neutral, grounded position that is much more inviting to people, right? So remember that triangle. It's like a golden triangle of places where you can begin to make adjustments to support the child growing and learning, right? So you've got the child, the environment, and the teacher. So that's the little bonus that comes along with my top three. Okay, so before we close today, my big question for you is, what's your big, bold move? What's one thing that you'd like to put into place inspired by what we talked about today? Or did it remind you of something like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And I want to revisit that. Okay, that reminds me of a social story I want to create to help support this child in learning something new, how to ask a friend to play. What does consent look like? How to handle those big emotions. How can I be an upstander for my friends? Right. So you can pause this if you're watching the recording and just decide, what are you going to do? What's your plan? Right. The adult brain works really well when we write something down or when we tell somebody else about it. That, okay, I'm going to try this today or tomorrow. I'm going to make that call. I'm going to make that adjustment. I'm going to write that social story and then go forward and do that thing. Okay. So as we wrap up our top three, actually four from Clear as Kind, I want to remind you that going forward, you have access to continued training from me. So I've got on-demand training, a full list of classes and courses that you can take at your own time. You can find those on my website at amywilliamsacademy.com, and you just go to register and you'll see a whole list of on-demand classes that are there and available for you. There are classes in leadership, classes inspired by Fred Rogers. There's a Clear as Kind. There is another one called Responsive Guidance, which is about guidance and discipline in the classroom, how to support those behaviors, all those welcome behaviors, and what to do for those behaviors that are not so welcome. Real concrete ideas and ways to support children. in that way. There are also classes around special needs and disabilities in the classroom, sensory issues, proprioception, vestibular, that's my jam. So I've got a lot of on-demand courses available for you for that. And also, we've got some books. So if you're thinking about social stories that you need to write, I got you. I've already written some. So you could go to my website, click on books, and see all that I have available. There's one about how to ask a friend to play. What is consent anyway? What does an enthusiastic yes sound like? What does a clear, firm no sound like? Let's practice, right? Then there's the big emotion. That one's my bestseller. Wow, that was a big emotion. That's a social story about how to manage your feelings when they get really big. It's a wonderful tool for children. It is also a great reminder for us. What do we do when our emotions are going bananas? Because we're human and it happens. Then there's rude, mean, bully. What is that? That's the role of the upstander. The difference between an upstander and a bystander, and how can we help children practice being an upstander for each other, right? I've got a teacher journal for you also. It's called the Spark, and I would love to gift you a digital version of the Spark, the teacher journal. If you're here or you see the recording later, send me an email, say clear is kind, and I'll send you that digital journal that you can download and fill out as you wish and on your own time. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We're wrapping it up. If you're not on my mailing list yet, if you don't find or follow me on Instagram, go ahead and do that. Amy Williams Academy on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. My email is amywilliamsacademy@gmail.com. So please feel free to reach out. If you have any questions or thoughts or celebrations that you'd like to share, I'd love to come alongside and be your cheerleader, be your support, be your coach. And together we're going to transform this world. We're already doing it. So let's do it hand in hand. All right. So I'm going to pause the recording now and take any questions from the audience that we have now. All right.